Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a pretty wild idea for a future where, let's face it, a lot of traditional jobs might just not exist anymore. It's a future that's being built by AI. And that brings up the big question. If machines are doing all the work, how on earth do people make a living? Let's unpack one potential answer.
All right, let's just jump right into the deep end, with this prediction from experts looking at what they call the post-labor economy. And to be clear, this isn't about AI handling a few boring tasks for you. We are talking about a future where whole careers, entire professions could become obsolete. Why? Because AI will be able to do them better, way faster, and for a fraction of the cost. This isn't sci-fi anymore, you know? It's a huge structural shift that we really need to start thinking about. The very heart of our society. Our entire economic model, it's all built on one simple premise, that AI is about to shatter. People work to earn money, and they use that money to live. So what happens when that fundamental link gets cut from millions or even billions of people?
I mean, think about it. Our entire system is designed around this one single fact. About 90% of us make our money through a job. That's how we fund, well, everything. Our governments, our healthcare systems, our pensions. It's all paid for with taxes and contributions that come directly from our paychecks.
Now, this is where it gets different from, say, the Industrial Revolution. AI isn't just replacing muscle, it's replacing minds. It's automating cognitive work, the thinking jobs. We're talking about entire workflows, from accounting all the way to creative design, being handed over to AI. And that right there shakes the very foundation of that 90% model we just talked about. So what happens when that foundation crumbles? Well, it's probably not going to be a slow, graceful decline. Experts are warning about a rapid, systemic collapse, kind of like a domino effect that could unravel all the social safety nets that we completely take for granted. And here's the real kicker. We don't even need to get to that crazy 80% joblessness number for a crisis to ignite. The sources we've looked at suggest that an unemployment rate of just 10 to 20% could be the tipping point. At that stage, tax money flowing into the government plummets, while the number of people needing support skyrockets. Our social systems just aren't built to handle that kind of pressure. And that's what kicks off this really dangerous downward spiral. It starts with mass unemployment. Okay, so no jobs means no money, right? And when people don't have money, they can't buy stuff. When nobody's buying anything, businesses go bust. And when businesses fail and people aren't working, well, the government's tax revenue completely evaporates.
In a world like that, the average person loses their single most important bargaining chip, their labor. Without the power to demand a fair wage, a whole new social structure could start to form. Some are calling it techno-feudalism. You'd have this tiny, super-rich class that owns all the AI and all the robots, and then a massive underclass that's completely dependent on whatever the state can give them.
The sources we've seen are pretty blunt. They describe this transition as a turbulent, and I'm quoting here, a potentially nasty period for a lot of people. It's basically a race against time. You have technology growing exponentially while our political systems just kind of plod along in a straight line. The real challenge is figuring out how to manage that gap without everything falling apart. Okay, so if we know this storm is brewing on the horizon, how do we build a bridge to get to the other side? Let's shift gears and look at the solutions being proposed to get us through this incredibly critical transition without, a total societal meltdown.
To stop a collapse from happening in the short term, experts are proposing these immediate support systems. Now, these aren't the final answer, not by a long shot, but think of them as essential safety nets, life rafts, really, to keep people afloat and maintain some social stability. They're the bridge, not the destination.
One of the most interesting ideas here is the negative income tax. It's actually a pretty clever way to put a floor under everyone's income. Basically, if you earn below a certain level, the government doesn't take your money, it actually gives you money. The cool thing is, it still encourages you to work because the payment slowly fades out as you earn more. It's a neat way to avoid some of the problems people worry about with other models. But remember, these are just the bridges. The long-term goal, the actual destination, requires a total shift in how we think about wealth. And the inspiration for this massive shift comes from a real-world example, a country that figured out how to turn a natural resource into shared prosperity for every single one of its citizens. The core idea is incredibly simple, but it's also revolutionary. If capital, meaning the AIs, the robots, the automated systems, is what's creating all the new wealth, then everyone needs to own a piece of that capital. Your primary source of income wouldn't be your labor anymore, it would be your ownership stake. And if you think that sounds like some kind of fantasy, you have to look at Norway. Their sovereign wealth fund, which they built with their oil money, has already piled up the equivalent of 340,000 euros for every single citizen. They took a national resource and turned it into national wealth, owned by everyone. The proposal is to do the exact same thing, but with AI.
This is a complete paradigm shift. We would move from the system we have now, where income comes from labor and gets taxed, to a future model where income comes from capital and is paid out like a dividend. Society would literally transform from a collection of employees into a collection of co-owners, all sharing in the incredible profits of this new automated economy.
So this all leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. Is this it? Is transforming every citizen from an employee into a co-owner the necessary, maybe even the inevitable path we have to take to make sure everyone benefits in the age of AI? That's something we're all going to have to figure out. Thanks for joining me.